Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and the squad want federal money to be used to make sure there are fewer Democrat voters. Hi, this is Scott Ott, and this is Bill Whittle Now. And Bill, AOC and Ayanna Pressley, two freshman representatives, teamed up with your favorite, Representative Barbara Lee from California, who actually wrote a bill that now has 169 sponsors in the House, or co-sponsors in the House, that would repeal the so-called Hyde Amendment. This was an amendment that was tacked onto some legislation back in 1976 that bans federal money from being used for the performing abortions, with the exceptions of rape and incest. Bill, this is in the midst of what Nancy Pelosi and the rest of the Democrats are trying to make the biggest issue of our day, which is the impeachment of President Trump. Has AOC gone rogue here, or is Nancy telling her to run with this?
You know, when you got a bunch of fear-crazed baboons in a tiny little space, and they all start running around and ripping their hair out, it's kind of hard to figure out, what's going on without a program. And I don't know what to say about this other than my first take, which is the progressive machine is powered by outrage, and it demands huge amounts of outrage every single day. So while the Donald Trump outrage is certainly a bit of a windfall for them, that doesn't mean that they can ignore securing future supplies of outrage. So I'm sure this is something that just flew into AOC's head. And I don't know whether she talks with Nancy Pelosi or not before she opens her mouth. I'm inclined to think not. But we just did a show not too long ago where Donald Trump had basically decoupled a lot of funds from Planned Parenthood in terms of their decoupled their ability to recommend their own people. And Planned Parenthood was willing to take a big financial loss in order to keep being able to recommend their own people. So just when we're making some progress, along comes this. And as we discussed on the last show, this is one issue that many, many, many Americans have strong feelings about, and at the very least, are absolutely incensed, disgusted, and disgraced by the idea that their money is going to perform these operations.
It's a fascinating from a political messaging point of view, Bill, because the bill was actually written by Barbara Lee, or by her staff, as they are usually, and introduced in March. But the reason why attention's been drawn to it now, in the story that I saw, it's the 43rd anniversary of the Hyde Amendment, and Ayanna Pressley and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez have appeared in a video pushing this repeal of the Hyde Amendment. Don't you find it interesting that a veteran lawmaker like Barbara Lee has to turn to two rookies to get some attention for something that you'd think that Democrats would enthusiastically embrace?
This is kind of like it's kind of like Kanye West inviting Pat Boone to come up and do a number together. When you've got politicians who live on publicity and live on, press and that whole ego thing that drives them, to be in the same building as AOC is to guarantee you a lot of coverage, fawning coverage from the at least from the history of the thing. And so I don't know what to say about AOC other than she just seems absolutely determined to say what's on her mind and to go with it. And this is the greatest gift to the Republican Party since Abraham Lincoln, Ronald Reagan.
It does seem, Bill, that the Democrats, who even Saturday Night Live this week was kind of making fun of how far they're trying to push this leftward tilt of the party, and in the middle of a presidential election year, to grab onto something like the Hyde Amendment, which was kind of a moderate, Hyde was a moderate Republican, and introduced basically just to keep things moving forward. And Republicans and Democrats over the years have all re-endorsed the Hyde Amendment. And it just seems like there are people within the Democratic Party at this point who will not be satisfied until they come up with a party platform that makes them absolutely unelectable, doesn't it?
Yes, and thank you for that cogent summary, which definitely clears the mists for me quite a bit. Yes. So this is what is happening. This is the virtue signaling Olympics, and AOC and the squad and the rest of the far left progressives have to continue to top themselves in order to keep, as I say in the beginning, in order to keep the outrage up, but also in order to keep up their bona fides as champions of whatever. The end result of this, of course, since this has basically been in place since the mid-'70s, as you point out, the end result of this is going to galvanize people for whom this was never an issue before, because no one had ever heard of it, really. And so then you have to ask yourself, is this going to get more people on board for the Democratic vote in 2020? Are there progressives who were not going to vote Democrat, but now are going to because the Hyde Amendment's been brought up and will be able to get federal funding for abortions? Or does that take an entire sector of likely Democrat voters and either give them one more reason or give them the best reason to simply not vote for these people? The religious Democrats, Catholic Democrats, any number of people who generally vote Democrat, for them, this may be the final straw. It may be the only straw. So again, the problem with AOC and the rest of these new progressives is they are too stupid and too overconfident to realize that the entire purpose of what the Democratic Party is about, and their entire strategy is for God's sakes, don't tell the American people what it is we really believe. That's the entire thing. And they're not smart enough to know that. Thank God.
Well, Bill, the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez refers to abortion in ways that might be alien to some people in the country. For example, she uses the phrase reproductive justice and reproductive freedom. And her thrust in introducing or in co-sponsoring this bill and making this video about this bill is that it would make abortions possible for, quote, incarcerated non-binary people, and they would be able to get an abortion not because they're wealthy, but because they are an American. Bill, I'm not sure I know what incarcerated non-binary people are. You're more tuned into that kind of thing. Who are we talking about?
Well, my first instinct was to say people who are incarcerated, but I'm going to extend the possible definition here. I don't know what it means. Let's just get that straight. But I'm going to expand the likely explanation that incarcerated might refer to people who feel like they're trapped in somebody else's body.
So not just people who are in jail.
You would think it would be people in jail, but with this crowd, you never know. It doesn't really make sense for just the people in jail. So of course, there I am trying to read sense into all of this, and that's probably my mistake in the beginning. So look, what is the Democratic Party's markers now? What are their markers? When I say markers, I mean, what are positions that have been stated by members of the Democratic Party in the election cycle for 2020? Well, one of them was no more jet travel because the planet is dying. Another one is no more meat because the planet is dying. And now we have, as a stated objective of the Democratic Party in 2020, federal funds for abortions for men who have transsexual operations to become women.
And that's what it sounds like here to me. And the only thing I could think of, because binary is used in terms of computers, I thought maybe this had something to do with robots being run by computers.
No, I think that is way beyond the ability of these people. So, do we not recall? Speaking in the imperial we, was a member of Planned Parenthood fired because the woman said that it was ridiculous to say that men can have abortions, something along those lines? Wasn't that something that happened a couple
Yes,
months
I forget
ago?
who that was or exactly the consequences, but certainly something bad happened to somebody who said something like that.
Okay. So if the person who's running Planned Parenthood makes the outrageous statement, the hateful statement, I might add, hateful statement, that it's ridiculous to say that men can have abortions, and if Planned Parenthood then says, out with you, off to the re-education camp. Of course, men can have abortions. Then please, for God's sakes, make the ability for male abortions to be paid for by federal funds the number one issue on the Democratic platform for 2020. I think this is such an incredibly grave injustice that men cannot have abortions, men who identify as women, which means women. And certainly we do need to allocate large amounts of federal funds to make sure that men who identify as women are entitled to federal funds for abortion.
Now, we're only talking about the poor men who need an abortion. Because this is really about federal funding for those people. Because, of course, as Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez points out, the people who get abortions now, because the federal government doesn't pay for them, are wealthy. And she wants the only qualifier to be American, which I think is going to run her into some trouble for the people who think that we shouldn't restrict it to Americans either.
Horrible racist statement on her part. Why is this restricted only to Americans? What a jingoistic, patriotic, Amerocentric position to take. You really do reach. Let me rephrase that. You wonder what the outlines of the absurd could possibly be. In other words, how ridiculous can life get and still be played seriously? And I always thought we were getting very close to the bottom on this one, but I realized, no, once you're in a hole, you can just keep digging. And that's exactly what they're doing. And Scott, it's not just a question of policies. It's not just a question of things that Democrats may or may not like or Democrats may or may not vote for. If this is the kind of thing they're talking about, we are now in a situation where the Democratic Party, at least the progressive wing of the Democratic Party, is making policy statements that are just flat out insane. They're just insane.
And has 169 co-sponsors.
Perfect. Even better. Even better. This insanity has infected the Democratic Party. To some degree, it's infected the Republican Party as well. It has certainly infected the nation. This politically correct, wishful thinking, magical thinking idea that if I say something or want something to be true, then it's true. Fantastic. That's what I want to run against. I don't want to run against health care for poor people. I want to run against federal abortion money for men who identify as women, men who are incarcerated, women who are incarcerated in men's bodies, whatever the case may be. This is what I want to run the election on in 2020. And because AOC and others have put this down, and because there's 163 votes, it just means that Donald Trump has in his pocket yet another one of these cards that he can just slap down on the table in his inimicable way and just basically turn to whoever the Democratic nominee is and said, oh, yeah. This is coming from the person that wants federal money for abortions for men who are trapped inside, women who are trapped inside male bodies. I have changed my entire perception of the future of this country, certainly in the last several months, but I'd be willing to bet you it started in 2018. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has changed and will change American history. I think there's no doubt about that, for the better. I think that by having somebody who is so narcissistic, so stupid, and so loud, that this entire progressive idea has doomed itself because it has, for the first time, exposed itself to daylight. And when the American people see what it is these people actually believe, they're going to run from it like Superman shrinks from, well, let's not include Superman on their side. They're going to run from it. Superman's on our side.
Bill, I have a theory about this because while it has 169 co-sponsors, it only has 169 co-sponsors. And this bill has been floating around out there since March of this year. And now it is almost October as we record this. Will be October when human eyes are laid upon it. It seems to me, Bill, that this may be one of those pieces of legislation that give a lot of Democrats in hard left districts the opportunity to say, I voted against the Hyde Amendment, when everybody knows it's not going to repeal the Hyde Amendment.
That's correct. And it also is the kind of thing where whatever's left of the moderate wings of the Democratic Party don't vote on this or vote no on it. I'm sure they don't have to vote no on it. It just won't get enough votes to pass. So that suits them very well. I'm not going to oppose it, because God knows if you're a Democrat and you oppose any kind of restrictions on abortion, or even if you oppose opening up new vistas of abortion, you're out on your butt. So I think for what's left of the reasonable Democrats, they're just keeping their mouth shut, hoping this thing will go away. They're not going on the record as being opposed to it, God knows, because that's the end of their political career. But I think they're hoping that they're not going to be called out to say, yes, I back it, because then they are exposed to the kind of walkouts on whatever percentage of the Democratic Party is left that still values, forget policies and positions, still values some vestigial connection to reality, even if it's just hanging by a thread.
So, final question for you from a political perspective, electorally in 2020. Do Republicans grab this particular issue and make the Democrats wear it like a Red Lobster bib?
You bet they do. Absolutely they do. And there's only one person in the entire political landscape who's not only able to do that, but willing to do that. Every single one of these absurd statements that these people make, every single one of them, I am convinced, is going in the quiver of a man who knows precisely how and when to shoot that arrow to get maximum coverage and maximum effect. Watching Donald Trump debating Hillary Clinton was a real eye-opener for me and many people. Here was a person who was not only not going to buckle under the unearned moral superiority of Hillary Clinton, but was prepared to throw those flaming arrows and make them count. Anybody who would bring rape victims to a debate, Bill Clinton's rape victims to a debate, in order to eliminate this Republican war on women strategy of Hillary Clinton's, is a guy who gets this political landscape, and it's an ugly, dirty one. And I wish it wasn't like this. I really, genuinely, honestly do. But it is like this. And we have a president now who knows exactly how to take these absurd, ridiculous, publicly uttered comments and publicly voted on, committed to positions on the part of the Democrats, put him away in his quiver, sling it over his shoulder, and be prepared to fire that arrow when it's most appropriate. And so the more arrows we can give to Donald Trump going into 2020, the better I like it. And as I say, I think AOC is a significant reason that the United States will eventually turn away from progressivism, because these people show the fundamental insanity of it, the insanity of constantly having to top yourself in terms of the absurdity of what it is you're trying to promote in order to keep the outrage machine going. Women who are trapped in a male body, not being able to have federally funded abortions, that's an outrage.
That's impossible.
That's impossible.
Hey, Bill, I understand we have some news about some folks who are coming alongside of us and that our members might want to know about.
We do. We're going to be doing for a while anyway. We're going to have some fun experimenting with some cross promotional stuff with our pals over at the Patriot Post. If you haven't seen them, they are a tremendous service. They've been doing print work for 20 years now and keeping that thing going. Me personally, I like their memes. I think their memes are the best in the business. You know, these pictures with captions and just pretty much grabs the entire thing. But we're going to put a link down below. And if you haven't been to the Patriot Post, we'd love to have you go. We think they're great guys. We think they're patriots, and they post a lot. So it actually works out pretty well for both of us. And they'll be helping us a little bit too by putting up some of our videos. So get a chance, just click on the link that's down below and say hi if you haven't been there. And if you have been there, drop it in and tell them where you came from.
In addition to them, and primarily, we'd like to thank the members at BillWhittle.com who've made this show possible. They are the fuel on our fire, and we are grateful to them. If you're not yet a member at BillWhittle.com, just go to that website and click the link that would make sense to click if you want to become a member at BillWhittle.com. As I heard on some podcast, it was Seth Godin who says, and click the appropriate link. I think you'll figure it out. We're grateful for your help in this enterprise. Spread the word. For Bill Whittle, I'm Scott Ott. Thanks for watching.